Good day to all. I'm here with providing you some of the important topics to remember for the final examinations from advanced topics in project management. So remember that this is not limited. You need to concentrate or you need to refer all the materials from advanced topics in project management, particularly from chapter 4 to chapter 8. So the first topics in advanced topics about project integration. So project integration management is the coordination of all elements of a project. It includes coordinating the task, resources, stakeholders, and any other project elements. In addition to managing conflicts between different aspects of a project, making trade-offs between competing requests and evaluating resources. So in other words, we can tell project integration management is a way of making various processes work together, meaning it takes the numerous processes that are being used in the project and make sure that they are coordinated. Project integration accomplishes this by making trade-offs, which means you cannot have everything if you want to get the project completed on time and within budget. This is a normal operating procedures for any project manager. If there are competing objectives, then alternatives are needed to make stakeholders' expectations. To achieve this means identifying, defining, combining, unifying, and coordinating the many processes and activities within the project management process groups. Therefore, project integration management involves making choices about resource allocation and trade-offs while managing those interdependencies that are in the project management knowledge area. So how we can implement project integration? In order to coordinate all aspects of the project, the integration management needs to create a number of deliverables. To start is the development of project charter. So project charter is nothing but which gives the authority to initiate the project. It contains the preliminary roles and responsibilities of the project, including the goals and objectives and the appointing of a project manager. It is used as a reference document as the project moves forward. The project charter is generic enough that it won't have to be changed much throughout the project life cycle. It is usually written by a manager who works directly above the project manager though the project manager can be one who creates it. Then comes scope statement. The scope statement defines what is part of the project and what is not part of the project. It lists all the works that will be done over the life cycle of the project, or in other words, it outlines the project deliverables and establishes a measurable criteria for success. Then comes project management plan. The creation of a management plan defines how the various processes in the project can work together for greater efficiency and productivity. The project charter is included in the project plan, but the definition of the project is described as well as its objectives, budget, schedule, resources, what approach you plan to take to get the project done, risk assessment, etc. will be included in the project management plan. Then comes direct and manage the project work, monitor and control the project work. Then finally, the project closure. Sources of change request. A change request is a formal proposal for an alteration to some product or system. In project management, a change request often arises when the client wants an addition or alterations to the agreed upon deliverables of the project. We can tell a change request is a proposal to alter some aspects of a given project. It can originate either internally or externally, that is from the internal customer or external customer. For example, a client may request a change to the agreed upon deliverables, or you may receive a change request form from the team member whose activities working on the project. Either way, without a formal change request process in place, these proposals can easily get lost, buried, or simply overlooked. Adjusting the scope or deliverables of a project without a proper change request process can also cause confusion and misalignment of the project team and project stakeholders. So generally used types of change request are normal change, standard change, emergency change, and major change. So there is normal change, standard change, major change, emergency change, and in addition to that, creating and logging the request for change, that is RFC, reviewing and request for change, that is evaluating the change and approve the change. So how we can submit this change request to the project management? First step, understand what is scope change. Second, determine the impact of incorporating the change. Third step, seek approval or disapproval of the change request. Fourth one, communicate and implement the approved change request. Then comes the third point, projects and operations. So generally a lot of people have a confusion between the terms projects and operations. So project is temporary. They have a definite beginning and end. It will be unique. They are new undertaking, unexplored ground. Projects are characterized by a new product, service, or process that hasn't existed before to create a new value. One objective to be achieved, and one that is done, the project is terminated. Systems have to be created. Performance, cost, and times are uncertain. Upsetting the status quo and violate the established practices, having more risk as they have usually done for the first time. Then comes operations. It's an ongoing execution of activities and they follow organizational procedures to produce the same result or a repetitive service that will help sustain the business. Operations are typically permanent in nature and they include all of the normal business functions. So we can tell as conclusion, operations are repetitive and ongoing. Operations can be characterized by repeat process, multiple objectives, system already created and also in use, performance, cost, and time are known, supporting the status quo and stick to the established practices, having fewer risk as they are repeated many times. Similarities between projects and operations. Both are performed by people. Both are planned, executed, and controlled. Both have resource limitations. So as a summary, we can tell projects are temporary endeavor, whereas set of operations are ongoing routine. Projects are new original work. Operations are repeated work. Projects are unique output. Operations have a repetitive output. And projects have terminated once objectives are met, but operations adopted to new objectives once achieved. The next topic is schedule recovery and compression. Schedule recovery and compression. As working professionals, we grapple with multiple projects, big or small, on a daily basis, yet many of them are left unfinished because we haven't planned for any number of contingencies. Worse, a lack of project scheduling techniques, can affect our personal life as well, with unmet commitments and pending tasks, straining relationships and affecting the productivity. What is schedule compression? Schedule compression generally refers to the technique used when a project manager wants to shorten the duration of the project without changing the scope of the project. It can be used when a project falls behind schedule and needs to catch up to finish the project sooner than originally scheduled. So, project compression offer two important techniques for scheduling time so projects are executed on schedule. Understanding these techniques and their applications in compressing schedules can be very useful whether in professional or personal sphere. So one of the technique is fast tracking. It's a technique where activities that would have been performed sequentially using the original schedule and performed in parallel. Or in other words, fast tracking a project means the activities are worked on simultaneously instead of waiting for each piece to be completed separately. But fast tracking can only be applied if the activities in question can actually be overlapped. When you need to compress a schedule, you should consider these techniques first because fast tracking usually does not involve any cost. This technique simply rearranges the activities of the original schedule. Then comes crashing. It's a technique used when fast tracking has not solved or saved enough time on the project schedule. With these techniques, resources are added to the project for the least cost possible. Cost and schedule trade-offs are analyzed to determine how to obtain the greatest amount of compression for the least incremental cost. And crashing is expensive because more resources are added to the project. So when should you use fast tracking versus crashing? There are two methods that can be used to cut down how much time is spent on project while maintaining the project scope: fast tracking versus crashing. Crashing is a method in which cost and schedule trade-off are examined to figure out the best way to obtain the greatest amount of compression for the least incremental cost. Crashing is used if fast tracking did not save a sufficient amount of time. Both fast tracking and crashing should be used on important projects to have a real impact on the actual project schedule. Schedule compression can be used when there is a need to reduce the project budget. This might be done by reducing the number of tasks that are completed or by compressing the schedule so that tasks can be completed in a shorter period of time. Next topic is power. Powers of a project manager. One of the major difficulties of a project manager is getting people to cooperate and perform. These are major issues in the matrix organization. The different types of power like formal or legitimate power, reward power, penalty or coercive power, expert power and referent power. Formal power is based on the project position of the project manager. Reward power stems to giving rewards. Penalty or coercive power comes from the ability to penalize the team members. Expert power is coming from being a technical expert or even the project management expert. And referent power is a power of charisma and fame. This power comes from another person liking the project manager, respecting him or wanting to be like him. So, the management and leadership styles. A project manager needs to use multiple leadership approaches throughout the life cycle of the project, like directing, facilitating, coaching, supporting, autocratic, consultative, autocratic, consensus, delegating, bureaucratic, charismatic, democratic or participative, laissez-faire, analytical, driver, and influencing. So here the first one is directing. This style is involving telling others what to do. Facilitating, the project manager coordinates the input of others. Coaching, the manager helps others to achieve their goals. Supporting, they provide assistance along the way. Autocratic, which is a top-down approach. The manager has the power to do whatever he or she wants. Consultative, a bottom-up approach. It uses influence to achieve the results. So during this time, the manager tried to obtain opinion from others and act as the servant for the team. Then consultative, autocratic. In this style, the manager solicits input from team members but retain the decision-making authority for him or himself. Consensus. This style involves problem solving in a group and making decisions based on group agreement. Delegating. The manager establishes goals and then gives the project team sufficient authority to complete the work. Bureaucratic. This style focused on following procedure exactly. Charismatic. They energize and encourage their team in performing project work. Democratic or participative. It involves encouraging team participation in the decision-making process. Laissez-faire, it's a French term actually, meaning allow to act, allow to do, or leave alone. So a laissez-faire manager is not directly involved in the work of the team but manages and consults as and when necessary. Analytical, it depends on managers on technical knowledge and ability. Driver, the driver style constantly giving directions. Influencing, this style emphasizes teamwork, team building, and team decision making. So during the project time, there will be chance for conflicts. So the conflict resolutions like confronting or problem solving, compromising, withdrawal or avoidance, smoothing or accommodating, forcing, etc. Next term, the project management plan. So many professionals are thinking that project management plan as just Gantt chart or a schedule. But it is not the same. We can tell a project management plan is a document that defines how a project is executed, monitored, and controlled. The project manager creates the PMP following inputs from the project team and the key stakeholders. The PMP is a formal approved document that defines how the project is executed, monitored, and controlled. It may be a summary or a detailed document that may include baselines, subsidiary management plans, and other planning documents. These documents generally used to define the approach the project team takes to deliver the intended project management scope of the project. Then communication. So one of the most important aspects in every project management is communication. So communication we can tell as a vital element of a well-managed project. There are mainly two groups of people within whom the project manager needs to ensure clear and effective communication, the stakeholders and also the project team. Every project will be sponsored by a part of the business with a stake in the outcome. What is the importance of communication? In our daily life, communication helps us to build relationships by allowing us to share our experiences and needs and helps us connect to others. It's the essence of life, allowing us to express feelings, pass on information, and share thoughts. We all need to communicate. Good communication keeps conflict and confusion from bogging the project down by ensuring key players are aligned on project goals and know exactly what is expected from them. The main 5 communication types in project management are verbal, non-verbal, writing, visual, and listening. The 5 concepts of effective communications are active listening, communication is irreversible, organizational culture, conflict resolution, and the 3 principles of ethical organizational communication. There are 5 types which I mentioned already: verbal communication, non-verbal communication, written communication, listening, and visual communication. And the 7 C's of communications are clear, concise, concrete, correct, coherent, complete, and courteous. The elements of communications are source, message, channel, receiver, feedback, environment, context, and interferences. Project manager's skills. So these are all the attributes you develop to become a more experienced project manager. Building a project management skill set includes learning technical and hard skills such as portfolio management and project scoping. Soft skills. In owning 3 skills, you are preparing yourself to more effectively perform in your role. So how we can use the project management skills? Using the project management tools, we can reduce silos, increase visibility, and facilitating cross-functional collaborations. As a project manager, you can use these tools to give your team the insights they need to get their best work done. While you don't need to learn complicated skills or tools in order to become a successful project manager, there are hard, soft, and technical skills you can develop in order to improve your management and collaborative skills. So that generally used soft skills, 10 soft skills of project managers: one is collaboration, second one is teamwork, third one is communication, fourth one is time management, leadership, organization, problem solving, critical thinking, adaptability, and conflict resolution. Project risk management processes. When you start the planning process for a project, one of the first things you need to think about is what can go wrong. It's not a negative thinking, even though it comes under negative category. It sounds negative, but pragmatic project managers know this type of thinking is preventative. Issues will inevitably come up and you need a migration or mitigation strategy in place to know how to manage risk when project planning. What is risk management on projects? Project risk management is the process of identifying, analyzing, and responding to any risk that arises over the life cycle of a project to help the project remaining on track and meet its goals. Risk management isn't reactive only. It should be part of the planning process to figure out the risk that might happen in the project and how to control that risk if it is in fact occurs. A risk is anything that could potentially impact your project's timeline, performance, or budget. Risks are potentialities, and in a project management context, if they become realities, they can become classified as issues that must be addressed with a risk response plan. So how we can manage the risk? To begin managing the risk, it is crucial to start with a clear and precise definition of what your project has been tasked to deliver. In other words, write a very detailed project charter with your project vision, objectives, scope, and deliverables. This way, risk can be identified at every stage of the project. Then you will want to engage your team early in identifying any and all risk. With every risk you define, you will want to log it somewhere. Using a risk tracking template helps you prioritize the level of risk, then create a risk management plan to capture the negative and positive impacts of the project and what actions you will take to deal with them. What is positive risk? As you know, not all risks are created equally. Risk can be either positive or negative. Most people assume risks are inherently the latter, where negative risk implies something unwanted that has the potential to irreparably damage a project. Positive risks are opportunities that can affect the project in beneficial ways. There are many examples for positive risks in projects. You could complete the project early. You could acquire more customers than you accounted for. You could imagine how a delay in shipping might open up a potential window for better marketing opportunities, etc. How to respond to positive risk? First thing you will want to know is if the risk is something you can exploit. That means figuring out ways to increase the likelihood of the risk occurring. Next, you may want to share the risk. Sometimes you alone are not equipped to take full advantages of the risk, and by involving others, you increase the opportunity of yielding the most positive outcome from the risk. Finally, there may be nothing to do at all, and that's exactly what you should do. Nothing. You can apply this to negative risk as well. For not doing anything is sometimes the best thing you can do when confronted with a specific risk in a context of your project. 6 steps in the risk management process. First, identify the risk. Second, analyze the risk. Third, prioritize the risk. Fourth, assign the owner of the risk. And respond and monitor the risk. Resource estimation. It's a technique of assessing the type and number of resources required for an upcoming project. For example, these resources could be human labor, material, tools, equipment, suppliers, machinery, etc. In the current business scenario, projects must be performed and delivered under specific constraints. These constraints are cost, time, scope, etc. Likewise, resources are one such constraint that project managers need to manage effectively. Resources are the driving forces behind the success of the project. Therefore, one must ensure that you have the right resource for your project, and for that you should have an efficient resource evaluation plan. When it comes to finding resources, you will have certain questions like, how can I access the type of resources required? How many resources will I require for the project? What are the skills that I should look for? Do I have sufficient resource capability? A proper resource estimation can answer all these questions. So, resource estimation is the technique of assessing the type and number of resources required for an upcoming project. For example, these resources could be human labor, material, tools, equipment, suppliers, machinery, etc. So, practical resource estimation can lead to the identification of resource requirements and resource breakdown structure. There are generally 5 methods for estimating the resources: expert judgment, analogous estimation, parametric estimation, bottom-up estimation, and alternative analysis. All these methods are explained clearly in the lecture materials. Please go through it thoroughly. So generally the steps involved in resource estimations are: first, evaluate the work breakdown structure and activity list, estimate the resource requirements, provide a heads up to the resource manager, identify resource availability, identify shortfalls or excess of resources, hire or retain resource as needed, explore contingent resources for short-term opportunity. Budget estimation or cost estimation. It is a process of forecasting the financial and other resources needed to complete a project within a defined scope. This cost estimation accounts for each element required for the project, from materials to labor, and calculates a total amount that determines a project's budget. Good cost estimation is essential for project management success. Many costs can appear over the project management life cycle, and an accurate cost estimation method can be the difference between a successful plan and a failure one. Cost estimation, however, is easier said than done. Projects bring risk, and risk bring unexpected cost and cost management issues. So the characteristics of credible cost estimate: clear identification of task, broad participation in preparing estimates, availability of valid data, standardized structure for the estimates, provisions for program uncertainties, recognition of inflation, excluded cost, independent review of estimates, and revisions of estimate for significant program changes. So some of the cost estimation techniques are analog estimation, parametric estimation, bottom-up estimation, three-point estimate, reserve analysis, cost of quality, dynamic tool. So how to estimate the cost in 10 steps? First, define the cost estimate's purpose, develop estimation plan, define the characteristics determining cost estimation techniques, identify rules, assumptions, and obtain data, develop point estimates, conduct sensitivity analysis, conduct risk and uncertainty analysis, document the estimate and present to management, and finally update the cost estimate. So all the very best for your coming examinations. Please remember that this is not the total list. Please concentrate on all the chapters which I mentioned to concentrate on for the final examinations. Once again, all the very best for your exams. Thank you.